So we have Willard and Dibs we have Willard in the building. We have Dibs at home, changing diapers right now. No doubt about that. He'll be changing diapers during the break. Already know what time it is. Already know that look on his face. Fellas, what's happening? What's going on?
What's cooking? What's cooking? What's shaking?
Are you more excited for Harbaugh coming this weekend? Because we had this talk with our program director, or the actual game itself?
Yeah, could not say this more firmly, the game itself. I've been listening to a lot of you guys today, and I heard actually what he came in and said to you guys. Yeah. It feels like people are more.
Yeah.
Great that he's coming back. Cool that they buried the hatchet or whatever this all means, and very fun to commemorate that season. Like, in a grand sense this weekend, This is about the 58th thing on my list.
Okay.
Like, I couldn't really care less.
Okay.
Like, Niners-Chiefs versus Jim Harbaugh being back in the building. And this is coming from somebody who dressed up with him as for Halloween one year, as I told you. Like, I got nothing against Jim Harbaugh, but...
Because I feel like we'll do
the
this.
The Niners are playing the Chiefs.
No, I know, but I feel like we'll do this when KD returns at some point when he's post-career, or like because I've never seen Bonds and Kent together on the field. It's like something.
KD will be different because he actually played with the Warriors.
Yeah,
and he's going to be on the court going against Steph, and we've already seen that in Brooklyn last year at Barclays Center when Steph Curry took over that gym. We know Harbaugh's at Michigan. We know he's not coaching the Niners anymore, and we're going to be celebrating him in a capacity with that football team. Wow. So I'm with it, but in my sense of who I've talked to and who I've been around, I've just heard so much about the reunion of the 2012 team.
It's different. There's something surprising about it. He left here with certainly some frayed feelings for sure. He's an odd guy to begin with. We look back at some of the characters that were on that team, what's happened with the life and career of Colin Kaepernick since then. It's a team that didn't win a Super Bowl, but we look back on it with all kinds of mixed emotions and still even confusion.
It's raw.
Right? So
10 years later.
So there's drama there. Like, Jim Harbaugh is a name that still has some attachments to it around here. And so I think that's why it's intriguing, because somebody's commemorating something before every football and baseball game and basketball game now, right?
Yeah.
So
the big quarterback controversy of that year. And Dibs, I want to hear your opinion on this, because you remember those times very closely.
Yeah, I was in my 40s then. Boy, those were the days. I think that if it was Carolina in town or Atlanta in town, yes, Harbaugh would be 1 and 1A. But I'm with Mark in terms of this game, this matchup. It's Super Bowl rematch. It's Niners trying to, find themselves. It's Patty Mahomes and what you guys talked about, and the Solomon Thomas draft, and what could have been, should have been, might have been. Then you get down to Trent Williams. Will he play? And, the injuries and what Kwaski Tart said on a podcast. And then you get to item 12, and then it's Jim Harbaugh and his khakis. And I don't know if it's been announced or if you guys know if Colin Kaepernick is coming back or not.
We don't know.
We don't know yet.
But if Kaepernick comes back, that's even above Jim Harbaugh. Yeah, so for me, the Harbaugh return is cool, and it's different in baseball because you have 81 of these. In football, it's really hard for an off the field promotion to upstage the actual game.
Remember when Dwight Clark was going to have his final appearance? Like, we kind of felt like it was going to be his final appearance. Right. Who was that against, Bonte? Was that
Dallas Cowboys? And they got blown out that day.
Yeah, and was it like a wet game?
No, it was a sunny game. That was the wet game was Eddie DeBartolo.
No,
Eddie DeBartolo was when he got honored. One of them was
like a rainy game.
Eddie DeBartolo was against the Patriots, and nobody was in the stands.
Yeah, because it was raining. So rainy.
And it was like, man, that's not right.
But it felt like they were getting blown out by whoever they were playing.
But it was the Cowboys when Dwight Clark got honored against the Dallas Cowboys, where he made the catch, and the Cowboys were rolling. Ezekiel Elliott had like a screen. They played Eric Reed at linebacker in the nickel. It was just a rough day for the 49ers.
That overshadowed the game. Because the team was horrible. I guess to Dibs' point, like, the team's good now, or at least we think they're good.
Well, I also think this is an example of, like, and I heard did you have a caller here about 5-10 minutes ago or a texter that was like, when Draymond Green leaves?
Yeah.
Like,
I'll never think about it. I think that's way too harsh.
You're full of it, because in 10 years he's going to come back.
Exactly.
And we're going to celebrate, and we're going to commemorate before a Tuesday night game against the Lakers, and everybody's going to cry, and this is what we do. Like, Jim Harbaugh did some really good things here, but this idea of putting him sort of side by side with Kyle, wishing Kyle was more like Jim. Jim's a nut job, and you're all forgetting. Jim has worn everyone out everywhere he's been in his career. This started with the "What's your deal" against Pete Carroll, and he wore his way out at Stanford. Then he came here, and granted, whatever side you want to be on, Jim, Balky, all this stuff, the Yorks, wore the players out, talked to the players, wore them out. Goes to Michigan, wore some people out. There's feelings there right now with the way he handles his off seasons, flirting with the NFL every single year,
to get a
even
pay
though
raise.
he's a Michigan man. I don't have anything against the guy at all, but this idea that we would want Kyle to be more like Jim is pretty funny to me.
Sideline demeanor. That's what it's about.
But that would be
empowering players.
Totally inauthentic.
Game to win tomorrow.
Would be
Game to win tomorrow.
Kyle.
Okay, what about you, Dibs?
Like this, that would be totally inauthentic.
You said that with
yes,
no breeze.
I think you have to think a little harder.
I'm taking Jim Harbaugh all day long.
I'm taking Harbaugh.
Well, it's a coin toss because they both had the game to win, and neither one of them won the game to win. Now, Harbaugh fell behind, and he got rescued by Beyonce in a power outage. All the single ladies.
Who doesn't want to be rescued by Beyonce?
And by the way, let's not forget about Jim Harbaugh and a goal line choke job in terms of play calling. Let's run another fade. I have an idea. Let's throw it up to Crabtree. It didn't work last time. Let's try it again. And Kyle Shanahan, all we talk about is him turtling up as a coordinator and then not going for the jugular against Kansas City. So for me, I hate to say I don't have a strong opinion like some might say, but to me it is a straight up coin toss.
That's fair.
It comes down to maybe who the opponent is. Now, if you're playing Kansas City in the Super Bowl, maybe I want Harbaugh because I think he is more prone to being more aggressive, but to me, they both have been in similar spots and they both have performed similarly.
I'm not here to say that everything needs to be always like kumbaya, players coach, let the players run the show, any of that. But I want a coach whose players like playing for a coach, respect the coach, are inspired by the coach. I know what Jim's record is.
Yeah.
However, talk to the players.
Can I say something real quick about that?
Talk to the players.
Because I've heard Alex Boone afterwards, and Alex Boone's been a great friend of the program here at 95.7 The Game. But all those players talking about Harbaugh, you never heard players say, hey, this position group, I don't think they gave it their all, like George Kittle did this past Sunday. We don't hear players saying we're not prepared. Willis did. I never heard Frank Gore's gone up to Michigan. Frank Gore is boys with Harbaugh. So I don't know about, hey, man, we don't like Harbaugh, but they played their asses off for Jim Harbaugh. They played hard in second half adjustments. Niners always made them under Jim Harbaugh for the most part.
I don't really have concerns from either coach in terms of the players wanting to play. I don't know. I don't even know who George Kittle was talking about last week. You had a compromised defense completely. The offense did weird things. They often do.
Why would George Kittle say that?
I don't know. Why would talk about the practice habits of Shanahan?
The ball up the field. I think Kittle was frustrated.
The Tart thing is interesting.
We're
going to get into the Tart thing for sure.
Yeah.
That's super interesting.
Well, so getting on to this thing because I've seen a lot of different things written about the health of the Niners during Harbaugh and the health of the Niners during Shanahan, and we're comparing and contrasting. The league is more sophisticated in terms of the brain injuries, and we're going to take guys off the field, and that factors into it. Not all of it, but that does factor into it. We're more sophisticated. We're trying to help players stay off the field so they don't put themselves out there to get hurt again. But they had a trainer for 9 years that was fired before the 2019 season, and then they hired someone outside of football, someone from the NHL, to be one of their trainers. That, to me, is one of the more interesting hires that we haven't really talked enough about. And I'm not around. I don't understand NFL trainers. I would love to hear what an NFL player...
It reminds me of when Chelsea Lane left and every Warrior fan freaked out. Oh, my God, Rick Celebrini. They all getting hurt. We miss Chelsea Lane. And now nobody talks about Rick Celebrini. You know what I'm saying?
There's something tangible going on right now. Like... you can clearly look at the data and be like, okay, is this luck? Is this unfortunate luck or whatever?
I have a hard time whenever we point to the trainer, though, because it's sort of something we do because we don't know what else to do. Can you imagine a job? And if we really put this on the trainer, I understand that the trainer is supposed to help them be healthy and help them work out. But if your job is to be like, it's on you if football players go get hurt. Holy hell!
Well, they have
who the hell wants that job?
Think about it in terms of our job. It would be like blaming Tim Jordan, who is our supreme engineer, You know what, Tim? My takes weren't very good today because my mic wasn't plugged in properly.
Or I have a cough, and that's Tim Jordan's fault.
But it's more like on a job site, you have a foreman who's responsible for the safety of everyone on that field.
But what Tart is talking about doesn't really have anything to do with the trainer. It has to do with the philosophy.
Well, that's more of my foreman question. Is what I'm getting
at. That to me
at.
is a very fair and interesting question that he's bringing up.
I want to go back to Harbaugh for a second and ask you something about Harbaugh, Mark. And that empowering quarterbacks. We talk about it all the time, just the way Harbaugh managed Alex Smith. And I know he gave that job to Kaepernick, but the way he empowered quarterbacks is something that I wish Kyle did a little bit more of. It felt like he hadn't had Jimmy's back for a long, long time. And then finally it's like, oh, Jimmy's great. We know what Jimmy could do. But it felt like, man, that's 3 years too late. Don't you think there's something to that? Like Alex Smith and Kaepernick would run through a wall for Jim Harbaugh. And we know there's probably some friction between Jimmy G and Kyle Shanahan.
The Jimmy situation, no matter who his coach is, has been very unique. I think there's a very fair question to ask with regard to whether or not Kyle Shanahan is too much of a control freak. Like that is fair, but it is like everybody sort of has Jim being a crazy person.
Every coach has flaws.
Right. Like I think Kyle at times his play calling and whatever his system is, right, but it's also very respected and revered in NFL circles. But are there times where he sticks to it too much to the point where it's almost dehumanizing the players on the field? I think it's a fair comment. That's a fair thing. Like Kyle wants that board to run the show, and then he wants someone to go out there and be a board, and that person's not a circle on a board, right?
It feels like Andy Reid loves the artistry side of offense as much as he loves the science side.
Well, and Andy's got Patrick.
No, I know, but that's what I'm saying.
But Andy's had everybody. And Andy, you got to give Andy. And we didn't know who Patrick was.
And what was Andy's rep before Patrick?
Couldn't win the big one.
There you go. It was the exact same thing we say about Kyle.
But the difference was consistently he scored points. You look at his overall record of ball movement and scoring points. That is undeniable.
Took the Eagles to 4 straight NFC championships with James Thrash, Todd Pinkston, and Todd Lewis.
Great coach.
Michael Vick. Think about how Michael Vick evolved.
And Kyle Shanahan's been to 2 out of 3 with Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, I mean, it's all.
But the quarterback hasn't gotten better. The problem with Andy Reid is never been offense. It's been clock management, time management, how to use your timeouts, when to go for it. Kyle Shanahan, there's so many flaws with Shanahan. They're not even the same ballpark.
Ask Eagles fans and T.O. if they think Donovan McNabb got better under Andy Reid.
He got sick.
Got sick. No, he did get better. What did them in?
Again, I think Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan, I think there's some comps there, but the difference is Andy Reid got over the top.
Yeah.
We'll say the same thing about Kyle if he ever gets over the top.
But his offense looks bland. Andy Reid has gone from, West Coast offense to implementing all the spread concepts
but wouldn't
to
he be
evolving.
Don Nelson? Wouldn't Andy Reid be more Don Nelson than Steve Kerr in the sense that, like, if he didn't win that one with Mahomes, we'd be like, oh, his offenses are great, but boy, he can't win the big one and doesn't play complimentary football.
No, because Don Nelson never played youngsters and he would put people in the doghouse. You never hear that about Andy Reid. Yeah. Andy Reid plays anybody.
I had a conversation. A very good buddy of mine is a huge Chiefs fan, and I had a weird conversation literally in the going into the playoffs, Alex Smith's final year there.
What was it?
And the conversation was, I was coming from this place. I'm like, you guys win the division every year. Yeah. He was kind of sauced up one night at a party, and he's like, Mahomes, we gotta go. I'm going, why are you? You win the division every year.
He must listen to the morning roast.
I go, why are you screaming about Mahomes? We don't even know what he's going to be. He's like, you watch, we're going to lose in the playoffs, and he's screaming at me. They go out 2 days later and lose to the Titans in the first round of the playoffs.
I remember that.
And I'm like, oh my gosh! And then Mahomes becomes Mahomes, and we always text each other. And I'm like, man, you were beyond right.
Yes.
But you're sitting here, Bonte, going, man, Kyle's offense is bland. What do you think a Chiefs fan said about their offense prior to Mahomes coming in?
It was because of the
offense is bland.
No,
they said the exact same thing.
We know why the offense was bland, though.
Why?
Because Alex Smith was the quarterback.
And Jimmy Garoppolo's the quarterback.
Exactly. I wonder if Kyle's offense will still be bland when he finally gets the weapons. This is a debate Mark and I have had because I do believe that this is what Kyle likes to do. I think he likes it bland. He likes the control of the ball. He doesn't like turnovers. turnovers. He doesn't like to take risks.
Wasn't bland in Atlanta.
It wasn't bland in Atlanta. He acquires Mahomes.
It wasn't bland. He won an MVP.
Yeah,
it wasn't
because
bland.
the quarterback was already there.
Last week.
Matt Ryan, we knew Matt Ryan was a good dude. Matt Ryan was a good quarterback when Shanahan got there. He was.
So that's what we're talking about.
But here's the problem. Here's the problem. Andy Reid moved off of Alex Smith. He drafted his guy and moved off of him.
So did
traded him
Kyle.
that offseason.
So did Kyle.
No, Kyle brought Jimmy back. He brought Jimmy back.
Come on, that's contextually unfair.
Kyle's been talking about different quarterbacks for 3 years.
That's contextually unfair.
For 3 years, he flirted with Brady. Said, "Yeah, we did talk to Brady. He can't move off of Jimmy." So Kyle gets no credit for that.
He did.
You don't get no credit for that. Jimmy's your quarterback in the now.
He broke his ankle. He broke his ankle,
and then he broke his ankle, and everybody thought Jimmy Garoppolo gave the Niners a better chance to win, right?
Well, that's
your boy Michael Silver's coming on. Coaches and players ran to him. Jimmy gives him a better chance to win. Matter of fact, Mark, you smiled at Dibley, myself, and Joe Shasky the day after the Seattle game, saying, and you sipped your iced coffee like you do always, and you went just like this.
Mm-hmm. Iced coffee's good.
You guys all know better. The Niners look better with Jimmy Garoppolo.
They do. They do.
They look the same.
But that's also contextually unfair because we're talking about in the moment. That's right now. Trey's a pup. Trey's a pup. But you can't say Kyle didn't move off of Jimmy. Kyle did move off of Jimmy. That's a fact.
Jimmy's still quarterback in here.
He did.
He's still here.
He did. You're wearing a Trey Area shirt.
He's still here. Still here, man. He's been trying to move off of Jimmy for 3 years.
But you know the context.
Super Bowl 54, he was talking about Kirk Cousins.
You know the context.
That is the context.
I love when you get that deep voice.
Slate's going to be on the team.
Can I ask something?
You're going to have to use him against the lefty in the eighth inning.
I find it real interesting.
You're going to have to.
I find it real interesting in the way you talk about Jim Harbaugh and how his fan base loved Jim Harbaugh to this day, and he's going to get a big-time reception Sunday at halftime against the Kansas City Chiefs. Why does it feel like if we critique Shanahan in any type of way, the defense mechanisms goes on for so many people when it comes to Shanahan? He's had one top 10 offense so far, Coach. That's why I don't put him in the stratosphere with Eddie Reed.
No, I think
can't.
Whoever's the head coach gets criticism, and then that doesn't. I don't like. Do you feel that way? I do feel like that. No, I think a lot of people criticize him. So there are not a lot of people defending Kyle Shanahan. There are some. And then there are also plenty who are criticizing him. But to me, he doesn't get the quarterback excuse anymore. You brought Jimmy back. Who's giving him an excuse? You brought Jimmy back. Why? Because a lot of people in the media, a lot of fans said, well, Trey's just not ready, and we need Jimmy back because he gives us a better chance to win. So he did move on to Trey Lance. He still had his head.
He did move on to Trey Lance, and Trey got hurt. And you know what? He's lucky, and 49ers are lucky that they still have Jimmy Garoppolo. And you know what? Next year is when we get to decide whether or not he made the mistake with Trey Lance or whether or not he was smart to go get Trey Lance. And if Trey plays next year and he's healthy and they don't do well and they don't make the playoffs, then all of the Kyle Shanahan haters are going to have their comeuppance, because at that point, Kyle Shanahan is exposed. Because this year, and it's unfortunate, but Kyle Shanahan gets a pass because Trey Lance got hurt. And that's just a fact. And the fact that they still have Jimmy Garoppolo is a lightweight godsend, because miss me with Mr. Irrelevant. If Trey wasn't ready, then Brock Purdy certainly wasn't ready. So you're lucky to still have Jimmy Garoppolo as a 49ers organization.
Dibs, in the background, I am seeing over your left shoulder. Is that what I think it is?
You're damn right it is, Joe.
That is one of the
most moment of the day.
Thank
what
you.
It is.
Explain to the people that aren't watching on YouTube. You should go to YouTube right now and see it. What is that behind you?
Well, I was the San Jose Earthquakes sideline reporter for about 4 or 5 years, and then Jim Kozimor, I don't know if you guys are familiar with him.
Yeah, a little running,
he was
a little
doing play-by-play.
All right, so a little running and a little throwing.
Yeah, NBC Sports Bay Area needed him for bigger projects, and so I got graduated into the play-by-play gig. I did it for 1 year. I had one epic call in one epic game, and I won an Emmy. And so, you know, cool. I always joke around, and I probably shouldn't say this too loud because my baby Mila's in the next room, but if my house was to catch fire, it's a tough choice between the baby and the Emmy.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe
Why is the Emmy on the back of the shelf, though? What is that thing that's in front of it? What is that?
That's a Blink camera. Amazon has these little small cameras that you can put outside your house, and they have an app where you can see what's going on in your house. I haven't hooked up my Blink camera yet, But the Emmy's up there, and it is the flex moment of the changeover.
Dibs, I love it. And it was back there so humbly, and I'm going, is that what I think it is?
Yeah. I should probably move it to the 4, but it's about all I have, guys. I mean,
what else do you guys have cooking? Any Warrior stuff? Anything?
Plenty. I want to get in the Draymond thing. For sure. We got great football guests. Mike Silver, Matt Barrows, TJ Hushmanzada all on the show today.
Silver's must listen.
What about this, though, for hoops and the Warriors? And we started to talk about this yesterday, but now having watched the Brooklyn Nets play as well as the Los Angeles Lakers, something just started ringing in my head. Okay, and to a degree, this is an extension of the Rams conversation. Even though I was wrong about that last year, I still think it's a short-term gain, long-term loss proposition for the Rams. Look at the NBA right now. Golden State Warriors, draft and develop.
Absolutely.
Memphis Grizzlies, draft and develop. Mm-hmm. Boston Celtics, draft and develop.
Minnesota for the most part.
Milwaukee Bucks, draft and develop. Yeah, everybody's going to you're going to sprinkle in some free agents for sure.
Yeah.
Now, let's compare that with Los Angeles Lakers, grab a star. Brooklyn Nets, grab a star. History of the Houston Rockets recently, grab a star.
Philly.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And it's fascinating to me that smart billionaires and smart millionaires, their GMs, sit around and keep doing this. And maybe it is pandering to your large market, LA, New York, Philadelphia, what have you. But my gosh, there was yet an additional appreciation for the way the Golden State Warriors, light years ahead, which got laughed at, and damn it if he isn't right. Look around the league at how many teams keep making this mistake. That was an embarrassing home opener for the Brooklyn Nets last night. They got run off the floor. Ben Simmons had a funny look on his face, got sent to the bench, fouled out. Like, again, the Nets and Lakers have now spent 2 years telling us, just wait till we're healthy. Well, you're healthy, and everybody on your roster's here, and you look like jokes. You look like total jokes.
Well, I will say this, because I still think Brooklyn will be really good. I know Joe Harris, who I know Shasky's not high on. He's not healthy. He's fine. That's a catch and shooter.
Overrated him like he said. I remember we've got Joe Harris. Like, come on, dog. I'll list 25 players before I even think. I'm talking about like side piece players, not even stars. Like, get Joe Harris.
You know what though?
Come on,
my biggest takeaway is the New Orleans Pelicans got something cooking.
Yep.
No, they have something cooking. That's a good team.
Yes.
Brandon Ingram is a star.
If only the Lakers could have kept a couple of those players. And waited 1 year to acquire Anthony Davis.
Only if you had drafted and developed. Exactly. You actually drafted some really good players, and then you dumped them. Because you're like, ooh, look, Anthony's tall.
That's all,
It's
folks.
funny because teams were trying to emulate the Warriors' super team model, but what they missed out on, Mark, is the fact that everyone but Kevin Durant was a draft and develop guy. So all these teams saw the Warriors assemble this super team and thought, we got to do it the same way. But because you don't draft and develop, other teams like Milwaukee is a great example of a draft and develop team. Toronto's interesting because they brought in Kawhi to their draft and develop model and won a chip, but Brooklyn, and to your point, the Lakers chasing the super team model, it doesn't work when you're going up against these other draft and develop teams.
And by the way, and I know some Laker fans will say, but they did. They won a championship. But like the Lakers are showing you right now what the Rams are going to be.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Okay? You won your championship. Cool. How we doing now? Like the Rams just put another offensive lineman on IR yesterday. They are, I mean, look, take it from somebody who I got to 1 o'clock last Sunday. I don't know if I told you guys this story. We were down to 4 people in a survivor pool. And at 1 o'clock, the other 3 people, 1 Tampa Bay and 2 had Niners. And so I sat down for a Rams-Panthers game, and I cared more than any Rams fans out there, if there are any. I'm like, all of a sudden.
So you had Rams.
I had the Rams.
Okay.
And I'm like, all we got to do is beat P.J. Walker
and they were playing hard
for the championship.
That was a good game.
And at halftime, they're losing. They're losing at halftime, and I'm like, you guys are terrible. The Rams are terrible. Cooper Kupp's an amazing player.
He's awesome.
Coop.
And they've got nothing else. They don't have a running back. They don't have a line. Their defense, Aaron Donald, whatever. They've got Donald and Jalen Ramsey. They make plays here and there, but outside of that, not impressive. They were able to finally squeeze out the Panthers, who just could not do anything. But like, that's not a good football team. And they've got no draft picks for the next 47 years. Like, they are. Like, the Lakers are and the Rams are they're the exact same model.
Yeah, man, I'm so excited. You're talking about your beat right here. This is how bad I am in fantasy right now. I've said this earlier today. I'm terrible in my big money league with the friends. I almost feel like retiring. I'm 1-5.
What's a big money league?
We're not going to discuss it. But here's what I will say: Aaron Rodgers. My wife might be listening.
Aaron radio money,
cash
money.
only.
Morning drive, buddy, Dibs. Morning drive, buddy.
Benching Aaron Rodgers, and I'm legitimately thinking of playing Bailey Zappi this weekend if he starts.
I got one piece of bad news for
insane?
you. No, you don't sound insane.
I know.
Except for the story I just read that Mac Jones is expected to start for the Patriots on Monday night. So if you start Bailey Zappi when he's not playing, then I'm going to say that you're probably going to take an L.
But that's where I'm at. I'm benching Aaron Rodgers when he felt like whatever the 11th or 12th, and I was like, suckers. He'll figure it out. I'm the idiot.
If only they had like a CYO fantasy league, you'd be running things, Butch.
11-time champion.
How about Damian Lee last night in the Valley of the Sun? Damian Lee coming back against Luka and the Mavericks.
How about Steph Curry? He had to be at least one bottle of wine deep because, and I love it. I mean, Steph, you do you on your off day, but you could tell that Aisha was not thrilled with it was an inebriation sensation.
I know that feeling. I did the same thing when Jalen Suggs hit that half-court shot against UCLA in March Madness. I was in the living room, and I'm jumping in circles.
Take that,
and it's like, she runs in the living room. What did I tell you? I'm putting bums to sleep, you idiot. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? He just hit a half-court shot. I can't hold that in. So, Dibs, Shasky, you're going to learn this one day. A play's going to happen while the wifey's putting the baby to bed, and you're going to scream, and you will be on the couch that night.
Dude, as you say that, I'm actually going to start going into whispered tones because I'm hearing crying from the other room, and I know that.
Dibs is going to do the show as Jim Nance at the Masters.
Hello,
friends. All right. So, here's my thought on Draymond Green.
Totally.
Draymond is a little out of pocket. It's a little too much.
Before we go.
Seems like the locker room doesn't like him. I'm not sure what to do about it.
By the way, Guru's going to come in here, BB, right?
Because
he's
because
on the
of the Draymond, he's on the dock.
Oh, whoa!
Let me play one clip for you before we leave.
We
talked about it.
Did okay?
Yeah.
He's all over it.
Yeah. Well, yes, he's all over it.
And so's
They
Damon,
would not tell me.
Yeah.
They would not tell me how much they got paid for it. But it seemed to be maybe a sore issue. So it sounds like there's a negotiation sensation taking place.
That's a buck.
Oh,
and that buck might be more than they actually got paid for.
I mean, you didn't get paid when you have to have someone text you to tell you, did you know that your voice is on TNT right now? He didn't even know.
I called Guru and let him know. I called Guru when it happened. Are you serious, B? Oh, man. I didn't even put it on the DVR.
He's the star of it.
How did
Outside of Draymond, he's the star.
He said Draymond should decide himself not to go to ring night. He should make a decision. Draymond should know not to go to ring night.
Bottom line, this documentary, which should not have happened, Steiny and Guru are complicit. Absolutely, partially at fault for.
It's TNT, right? I'm not saying that Draymond's not also part of it, but
I don't know.
He had something worked up with TNT that he probably
like his production company is part of what put this thing together.
Oh, I didn't even know he had his own production.
Yeah,
company.
like isn't it Green 23 or whatever the name of the production company? I just look you're not going to come out of this and do anything that's going to make you look like the sympathetic figure. And when you're sitting there doing one of those docs where you're looking a little right of the camera and acting like you're talking to Oprah,
it's disingenuous.
Not the right time.
All right, Willard and Dibs coming up next. That'll be brought to you by On Deck Small Business Loans.
If you own a business, this has been a bumpy ride. From pandemic to inflation, I'm sure you could use a break. If your business has 5 or more employees and survived COVID, you might be eligible to receive a payroll tax refund of up to $26,000.